Folks, we got some breaking news. We have to separate from all of this here. Wow. Stunning news. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 87. She had been battling metastatic pancreatic cancer. Has fought pancreatic cancer for a number of years. She had been in and out of the hospital. This is a stunning announcement that just came down literally 1 minute ago. Supreme Court announcing that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a pioneer on the Supreme Court, one of the leading attorneys in this country, clearly the leading women's rights attorney of the 20th century, has passed away at the age of 87. This, of course, is shocking, Dr. Nam. It is. Let's go to, actually, before I go to my panel, Eli Mistel, who is with the Nation. Eli, this is just. This is. It's shocking news. But I don't want to get into the political piece of it yet. But let's first talk about this woman. When you talk about a pioneer, the documentary that was done on her, the movie that was done on her, what she did to change the laws of this country to make women equal. She has no peer.
She's been the foremost fighter for women's rights and women's equality for 30 years. She fought for it before she was on the Supreme Court. She fought for it while she was on the court. She has been the person who's held that light the highest. It's devastating that she's gone.
Let's just be clear. She had been holding on. She wanted to see a Democrat elected for her to be able to retire. This is the one thing that literally progressives that were praying for her health, that she could live past the election if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris could win, because Republicans, by replacing her, you're talking now having a 6-3 majority on the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah, and there's nothing that I foresee the Democrats can do to stop that from happening. If Mitch McConnell had, any decency, he would use the same rules that he used to block Merrick Garland in Obama's last term. McConnell invented a rule that you can't change Supreme Court justices during an election year. Antonin Scalia died in February of 2016. Ruth Bader Ginsburg appears to have passed away in September of an election year. So we're closer to the election than when Antonin Scalia passed away. If McConnell had any decency or consistency, he wouldn't put forward a nominee until the presidential election was sorted out. Obviously, we know he doesn't. Obviously, he's promised, and his Republican sycophants will follow along. Trump will have somebody nominated, I imagine, by Monday or Tuesday. And, that nomination will be pushed through very quickly, I think, either right before the election or in the lame duck if they want to keep it open as an election issue to motivate their base. It's legally, I don't see any way to stop that.
When you think about her career, when you think about the cases she argued before the Supreme Court, the creation of the Women's Law Center with the ACLU, again, when you just look at case after case that was immortalized on the big screen as well. I mean, again, if you talk about the legal giants in America, there's no doubt Thurgood Marshall is on that Mount Rushmore. I would dare say Ruth Bader Ginsburg is sitting right next to him on that same Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely. She's only the second woman ever to sit on the Supreme Court, the first kind of openly liberal one, or openly progressive one, if you will. And she's had a storied career. I think that she's, I'm starting to, it feels a little bit early to kind of get into her judicial legacy. But one of the things that I think she will be remembered for, in a way that's a little bit different than some of the other great justices that you've remembered, is her fierceness in dissent. The people don't always understand the value of a good dissent, right? Because either you win the case or you lost. And so why do you write about how you lost? RBG's dissents made it clear the liberties conservatives were taking with the law, the harm they were doing to the law, and in often cases, I think, in many situations, I think her dissent pointed the way forward to changes in the law and to strengthenings of the law. She never let being on the kind of losing end of a 5-4 decision stop her or darken her moral clarity on an issue, and that's intensely valuable. Not everybody can do it. She did it particularly well.
Dr. Nyambe Carter, this is, of course, shocking news. She had been, again, battling significant health issues over the last several years, but it really, in and out of the hospital in the last year. Earlier this year, she was in Johns Hopkins University a couple of times. This is, anytime you lose, obviously, one of 9 Supreme Court justices, it is big news. But the fact that we are sitting here almost at the end of September with an election on the horizon, and any political operative would know that when you look at what is happening here, likely Donald Trump loses this election, Democrats will win the White House. Democrats, not only that, likely are to take control of the United States Senate. They were hoping that if they were able to win White House and Supreme Court, that they would be able to replace Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. The same feeling was that, and she was thinking that this was going to happen 4 years ago, that Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump, and she could have retired at that particular time, but she stayed on hoping Democrats would win, and it's not going to be the case. As Ellie just said, look, Republicans, and let's be clear, Donald Trump has been waiting for this. In fact, clearly there must have been a heads up for Donald Trump, was it earlier this week, last week, to all of a sudden come out and announce his Supreme Court list? That came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that list is terrifying. If you actually looked at that list of Tom Cotton is just one of many. Judge Ho is on there. There are a lot of conservatives on there that would give many people pause. And, I first, want to give my condolences to the Ginsburg family and to all those who knew her, because she was such an icon for so many people and such a beacon, especially in her latter years, who was fighting valiantly because she knew what was at stake should she pass away on the bench. And Mitch McConnell told us a year ago in 2019 that if she died or there was an opening, they would fill it. So I have no doubt that they will move quickly, expeditiously, right, to get this seat filled as quickly as possible with one of the most conservative names on that list that they can find. And this is what you've been talking about all year, Roland, about why elections are important, because what this enables the Republicans to do is extend their reach over the arc of history, right? Long after Donald Trump is gone, these people will still be installed on that Supreme Court and are, dead set against any of the things that most Americans care about, like protection of voting rights, women's right to choose, all these things, criminal justice reform, right? These people are there as a stopgap against progress, quite frankly, and that's why they're putting them in these offices. That's why that list that Donald Trump circulated last week looks the way it does, and it is quite frightening of what's happening right now in this moment.
This is the headline on the front page of the Huffington Post. Simply 2 words: Ginsburg dead.
It's terrible news. Obviously you're correct about a pioneer. Obviously, thoughts and prayers to her family. But this is awful. It's awful in so many different ways. I know the professor touched on some. But if they move with dispatch, which I think we all know that Senator McConnell will, this Supreme Court, this 6-3 Supreme Court, has the opportunity, if it gets to that point, to potentially decide this election. If there are critical issues related to states Obviously, they're not going to be in session. They'd have to come back for these kind of matters, as they did in 2000 with the Gore-Bush decision. The ramifications are terrible. And keep in mind that, yes, elections have consequences, clearly. Republicans have always cared much more about court appointments than Democrats have. And when they put on their appointments, they put on folks in their 40s and 50s, which means they will sit on the court for 4 decades. So this is a problem so wide and so huge. And Justice Ginsburg did everything she could. You don't think she wanted to live her life peacefully, relaxing, reading books, writing her memoir in her last days? Of course she did. But she wanted to hang tough because she knew the importance of her seat. And now that seat is going to be filled by a far right-wing conservative. This is terrible.
Rob Richardson. Rob, it is, and again, I don't want to have a hardcore political conversation, but you have to. Today is September 18th. We know exactly what Mitch McConnell is going to do. I can tell you right now, there's no doubt in my mind that the final vote will probably take place October 23rd. They are not going to wait on anything. Look,
No,
they
won't.
they play for keeps, and this is and look, she was unabashedly liberal. She was valiantly trying to hold on to see who won. That's what I mean. This woman was fighting for her life to hold on.
Yeah, there's no question. And first of all, obviously blessings out to her family, and they have lost her, but she meant a lot to so many people. You know, her legacy was about, like, I think it's too simple to say she was a liberal. She was a person that fought for values that I believe are American. She fought for the equal rights of women. She fought for the equal rights of African Americans, and she did so in a way that was able to sometimes bring people over. She would, what I think is being missed is that there are a lot of really close decisions that have happened over the last couple of years that went 5-4 that really shocked people. And I know she had a lot to do with that because she had an understanding of how to talk to the justices and make them understand the bigger picture of why they are here, even some of the conservative justices that she could reach. Now, missing that, I'm afraid of the consequences that are going to come out. And this is going to be 30 or 40 or 50 years. And, even when you do need to change these branches of government. So this election still matters a lot. But now we have an area that I hope people understand, because they will begin to understand, because there will be some really, really awful decisions that are going to really affect people's lives in a way that they will see it. But I hope people understand, and Democrats understand the fact that they have to play. They don't play the long game when it comes to judges. They act like this is something they can wait on. Judges are almost the most important thing you have in your legacy when you're a president and you're in the Senate, period. They're people that are going to decide these cases. They're going to decide whether people have a right to a jury. They're going to decide whether police can come and search you for any reason. These laws have been decided by the Supreme Court, and they affect everyday people, but people act as if these things are somehow far away and they don't affect you. So I hope we learn a lesson from this, because sometimes you have to go through a lot of pain. And I do think that we'll be in pain in this country based upon what's happened. And it's not going to just hurt Democrats. It's going to hurt Republicans. It's going to hurt common, ordinary people. And I hope folks understand that these decisions matter. But for now, definitely God rest her soul. She made a difference. Her legacy will definitely outlast her, and her ideals will still be pushed forward.
Ellie Mistel, you still there? Is Ellie still there, folks? Okay, sorry, Ellie is gone there. This is again, it's a shock. The news came down just several minutes ago. The Supreme Court announcing that 87-year-old Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman to serve on the United States Supreme Court, died as a result of pancreatic cancer. She had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer several years ago. In fact, she previously had cancer, and the reason her cancer was caught was because of that particular cancer. Pancreatic cancer happens deep within the body. Typically, once they discover it, it is too late. You might recall Congressman John Lewis died of pancreatic cancer. But in only about 4 to 5% of people with pancreatic cancer live upwards of 4 to 5 years. Congressman Al.C. Hastings, he was diagnosed more than 2 years ago, pancreatic cancer, and is still a member of Congress and is still fighting. And so she was, like I said, when she was diagnosed, she had been fighting it for a significant significant time. She was, of course, married to Martin Ginsburg, who was a tax attorney, who helped her, with her first arguments before the Supreme Court. He passed away of testicular cancer, and then which, of course, developed in 2010. She was, as I said, a prominent attorney, one of the first women to go to law school. Was a fierce fighter when it comes to the courtroom. Smart as all get out. She attended Cornell University. That's where she graduated from. And in addition to that, she enrolled in Harvard University in 1956. Only one of 9 women in a class of 500 where they did not even have female bathrooms at Harvard University. She, of course, was ignored. She eventually transferred to Columbia Law School, where she actually got her degree from there, and she earned that degree in 1959. And no shock, she graduated first in her class. Dr. Carter, again, when we look at her, career, when you look at history, when you look at the laws that were struck down, there were laws. We talk about African Americans, but also, I mean, like we always say, this nation was built for white male landowners. And there were clear laws in this country that were designed to keep women in their place, to keep them in the home. And that particular lawsuit, where she actually represented a man who was a caregiver, utilizing tax law to actually lead to equality when it comes to women, and then they went after law after law. This woman was a legal giant before she even got on the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. And I think, when we think about where women are today, we don't think about the fact that not very long ago, women couldn't have credit cards, right? Women couldn't insure vehicles. I mean, basic things that we take for granted that we can do now are largely because of the advocacy and the fight of a Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the many women that, she brought along with her. I mean, she was also responsible for bringing in a cadre of women to the legal profession and nurturing those young legal minds. So I think, you cannot, properly memorialize someone who had a career as great as hers and as long as hers. And I think Rob is exactly right. I mean, the thing about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, more than sort of her ideological positions, was the fact that she was always thinking about what was just, what was going to make this democracy more robust. How can we expand the boundaries of who we are so that we can actually be the best of who we think we are, right? So that we can actually be the America that we claim and we purport to be. And I think that's what made her great. And I think, as you detailed her last years, I mean, made her so much more courageous than people appreciated, because she pushed past her pain and her discomfort and sacrificed time with her family and her loved ones in order to make sure this country didn't fall by the wayside, right? And didn't slip into the dumpster fire, quite frankly, that is this particular moment. And I think it's, it's really frightening to think of what's going to come next, because that's all I can think about at this moment. And I'm thinking about all of the political jockeying that will happen before this woman is even laid to rest. Right. And then, all of the insincere condolences that will come her way when we know some of these very same people couldn't stand her because she stood in the way of what they were trying to do. And so I'm all in awe of all that is Ruth Bader Ginsburg's career, and all that she was able to do for people like me and others, quite frankly.
And I think, Michael, that unfortunately, I think a lot of the focus is not going to be on her career. I think a lot of it is not going to be on the laws that she shepherded, that she had changed through judicial decisions. And I think that what people also have to understand, we talk about these very laws. Remember, she had to go before the Supreme Court to change these laws. People keep hearing me on this show yell at the top of my lungs, voting does indeed matter. Presidents pick Supreme Court justices. They are confirmed or denied by the United States Senate. Elections matter. And this is a woman who, again, was first in her class at Columbia, yet a Supreme Court Justice, Felix Frankfurter, refused to hire her as a clerk because she was a woman. Forget the fact that she was number one in her class, smarter than any other guy at Harvard or at Columbia. He refused to hire her because she was a woman. And this woman later, who gets refused as a Supreme Court clerk, later gets appointed by President Clinton to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. It is going to be a lot of political jockeying. I haven't even checked, but I guarantee you, white conservative evangelicals, they have in a moment of glee right now, because this is why Mitch McConnell blocked Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
This is why they elected Trump for Neil Gorsuch, and then of course Kavanaugh, and now with this they will they will pick somebody who is not a moderate, who is not a centrist. They are going to pick someone who is just as conservative as Clarence Thomas, and conservatives will hold. And here's the other piece. What this does when you look at it, John Roberts had turned into the so-called centrist. Now they don't need his vote.
Yes,
correct.
It's you know, for the the late, I hate to even say the late Justice Ginsburg is a giant, clearly, and the consequences of this, as I mentioned a little earlier, we all mentioned, affirmative action on the table, Roe versus Wade on the table, HBCU funding, public funding on the table. All these issues are now on the table. Stop and frisk on the table. NRA gun rights back on the table relative to loosening some of those restrictions. All of these issues that the courts have fought so hard for are now on the table. And you're going to see suit after suit, even once President Biden and Vice President Harris are in office. Even though the country is changing demographically, even though our world is moving in a different direction, the Supreme Court will now be there, as said earlier, as an incredible backstop to slow that progress. And now that all these issues are on the table, and when these conservative groups sue states, they know that at least they may have a 6-3 margin. And that is terrible for women, for people of color, for immigrants, for people trying to get a second chance, returning citizens. This is terrible. And for folks, I know you're right, Roland, exactly right. The folks on the right are completely gleeful, because the only reason some of these folks even participate in politics is so their president can support federal judges or appoint federal judges. On our side, which we don't take as seriously, now you'll see why for the next half a century. This is terrible. Terrible.
I'll just say this to conclude this. You know, she said real change. This is RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Real change, enduring change happens one step at a time. So, and it's not a linear process. So we're going to have to keep fighting here. And if you're able to win the Senate, if you're able to win back if you're able to keep the House and you advance and you get the presidency, and we actually move the ball forward, then we have people we can hold accountable to push, because there's going to have to be more progressive laws to counteract these things that are the judges that are trying to prevent progress. I don't even like saying conservative. They're going to appoint a radical person to that position that does not believe in our humanity or that doesn't believe in equality under the law for women. That's not conservative to me. That's something else. And that's going to be bad for America. So at least people will be, I think, more awake, and they will need to fight harder than ever because, you know, we've taken a step back, but we got to keep moving forward one step at a time, as she would have wanted us to do.
Indeed, folks. The breaking news just moments ago. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 87. The second woman appointed to the United States Supreme Court by President Bill Clinton, a pioneer lawyer within her own right. She, of course, the subject of books, of documentaries. She Will Rise, of course, also the big screen movie as well. An absolute amazing lawyer, a legal giant, someone who, of course, women looked up to in this country, men as well, but women absolutely because of her pioneering status. We will have more on the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Monday. There were some additional stories we were going to get to, but we will show those on Monday as well. Typically, we close the show out with our charter member list. We will not do that today, nor the appeal for you to join our Bring the Funk fan club. We will simply fade to black. Again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Supreme Court Justice, dead at the age of 87.